You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Adam Eskdale.
Hey, Rob, you all right?
I'm doing all right, man. How are you? And tell me a little bit about yourself and the audience out here listening.
I'm very good. Basically, I'm a student in London at the moment. So I'm 22 years old, currently studying a Ph.D. in geology at the moment.
What now? Okay, so I do have to address this because I usually address it when a person from UK or Australia comes on. Why do you guys drive on the wrong side of the road?
Because we're on the right side of the road. It's the left side of the road, but it's a well-known fact, it's the right side of the road. So
Surprisingly, that's always the answer they give me. It
yeah.
seems like it's a cheap answer, but I'll take it. So, how did you start getting interested in geology? I think a lot of people don't really understand. I think when they look at a rock, they think that's all that geology is.
Well, that's all I used to think it was. I mean, I didn't do it at school or anything. I did geography. So I was like trying to look at university courses that would be interesting, sort of like outdoorsy, kind of relate to geography. It's like, everyone looks at the cool volcanoes and goes, "Oh, I want to learn about that." So I saw geology was being advertised, and I just sort of went with it, just chose that, and then learned everything from scratch as I went to uni.
What did you find the most interesting thing about it?
Um, how varied it is. I think it's like you kind of hit the nail on the head by the fact that so many people, when they say to me, "Oh, geology, that's just rocks, right?" And I'm just there like, "Yeah, it is, but there's so much more. There's like a whole like just unseen world of just like learning geology. You don't have to just look at rocks. You can look at it from a physics basis, a biology basis, like a chemistry basis,
The
looking at
types of minerals and components that really make up into just a rock in general.
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
so many people don't even understand that there's so many modern day geologists, maybe not in the form of getting their PhD, but how many people collect rocks?
There's so many people, like just hikers, people that just go outside and they just see the shiny thing in the ground and they take it home.
There's this weird movement that actually happened in my towns. People started taking these rocks and they were picking them up and painting messages on them and painting them in different colors and stuff and just leaving 'em around town in weird places. It started off to be very, very positive, and then like people like me kind of turned it into a negative where I wrote on a rock that said "you're gay" or something, and left it at my
Of
buddy's
course,
doorstep. And my buddy looked down at it. He's like, "Why? Why?"
you're ruining the movement. You're the reason that movement will never take off.
But I think it's interesting though because the amount of collection. First of all, they can go down into the mineral deposits. You can go down into so much that goes down and just into the constitute that is our Earth. That a lot of people don't really take the time. They walk outside and they see dirt. Someone like yourself probably sees something completely different.
Yeah, I agree, because it was especially in the early years when I was learning, it's that, say you're on a bus or a coach or something, and you're looking out the window, you're just looking at the landscape. Someone that's probably not trained will just look at it and see it as the countryside or whatever, but someone with even a basic bit of geological understanding will just see so much more if they're actually like looking for it. Like it's gives you just this kind of whole perspective, I guess, that not other people have.
What types of things have you learned about geology just from when you started?
Oh God, everything. I knew nothing. I can't even comprehend how little I knew. I joined and I was asking all the questions like, what's a mineral? Like, what is quartz? I knew absolutely nothing. So I'd learned so much about volcanoes and like the mining industry, about fossils, about the history of the earth, dinosaurs, just like
Well, shoot me some of that information. I'm kind of interested in wanting to know more. I knew about mud. I don't know if you ever heard of mud cookies.
Mud cookies. What are
okay.
those?
So I actually learned this before I actually had a taste of a mud cookie. So a mud cookie is actually pretty popular in Africa. What it is, it's 90% dirt, 5% butter, and 5% salt.
90% dirt.
90% dirt. It is literally what they say. It is a mud cookie. It is a straight up cookie made from dirt. I did a podcast on it, and then eventually I started to work with a Haitian woman. And I brought it up to her. It was the first question. I was like, yeah, the mud cookies, you basically, what happens is it fills your stomach. It's like, it's something to keep you off the point of starvation. There's really, I mean, I guess you get nutrients from the dirt that's in it, but it's really not very tasty, I guess you would say, which is what I thought. And
Yeah.
I asked her about it, and she goes, "Hell yeah, I love mud cookies." I'm like, "What? What?" And she said, "Yeah, my grandma still makes those. I still have them today." I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! You're eating you're eating dirt still?" She's like, "Yeah, we get clean dirt." And I had to stop and think. I said, "Clean dirt?" And she told me, she said, you can order specially made dirt. And it actually leads into a whole nother medical thing too, as well. What happens is pregnant women, around the time if they're not getting enough supplementation for the baby, instead of taking a supplement or some type of a thing that can help them get those extra minerals and nutrients that they need, they'll start craving dirt. And it's because the dirt holds a certain amount of iron, holds a certain amount of other minerals inside of it that actually help with the baby's growth as well.
Damn, I did not know that.
Look, look at
That's
that.
so weird.
Learn something new every day.
Yeah, every day's a learning day.
Everybody
Nice.
go outside and eat some dirt.
Yeah, go outside into your gardens and shovel it up. It's all the good stuff.
My teachers just thought I was an idiot. I was eating dirt. It didn't.
Clearly, you knew something everyone didn't.
I had the secret. So, but when it comes to like just your basic knowledge, or maybe something that a lot of people, I guess, or maybe even yourself find interesting about geology in general, what have you learned?
Oh man, that is a good question. I'm trying to think now. Um, well, I'm currently working in, I guess, the mining sector. So like finding rare metals for renewable technology and things like that. So, but that's a whole side of geology I just did not know anything about. So I didn't know that. Okay, so here's a good phrase that I heard on like day one is if it wasn't grown, it was mined. So if you think about everything that we use day to day, like absolutely everything, whether we eat it, whether we like wear it, whether we, use it for technology, if it wasn't grown, it was mined. So that kind of gives a bit of an indication of how much stuff we just take out the ground and like how much of a necessary sort of factor that is to just modern society in general. And yet
Like
mining.
stone, copper, all these essential minerals and things that we use. Look, I play Minecraft. Okay, I know
Exactly. If you've played Minecraft, you'll know.
I know if I took 6 stone blocks and stacked them on top of each other, I have an okay wall for the side of my house. But
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
what's interesting about it is to just like the idea of finding something inside of a rock. Like how many people collect crystals or any of these types of things that they hold, like, I don't know, like look at this really cool sharp whatever crystal. You find out it's made of like a cheap mineral that's actually pretty common, you know?
Yeah, that's something that I've noticed a lot of recently. So there's a bit of a trend. I'm not sure if it's the same in the States, but especially in the UK, you get a lot of shops that are selling like I guess jewelry, but mineral jewelry. So like malachite and quartz and agate and all these things into like bracelets, necklaces, and they jump a massive price tag on it. But if you actually look at what it's made of, it's a lot of it's pretty common. Like it's not as rare as people seem to think it is, and yet like I can't walk into these shops without just seeing it and not being annoyed, but just being a bit like, really, like I wouldn't pay for that. But it's weird how not a lot of people would know. So I find that quite interesting, especially because how many people now are out there like collecting minerals, as you say, and like crystals.
Well, everybody obtains it on the aspect of how pretty it looks, but no one really understands kind of the basic knowledge behind it as well. Maybe someone
Yeah.
doesn't even want to Google it only because they don't want to find out that it's a very, very common thing. They like having this idea that it's very, very rare. As a geologist going into, I don't know, any type of emporium, whether it's for psychic or whether it's for something of like, ritualistic beliefs where we use crystals or something like form of healing, maybe you start seeing, common things like, oh, that's quartz, oh, that's whatever. The list goes on and on of the things you could name. But to the average person who doesn't have any of this information, they're walking in like, oh, it must have been touched by the hand of God. And you're
Yeah,
like,
literally. You're just like, no, it's a copper sulfide. It's you find
I can literally dig 2 feet down and pull that out.
Yeah, yeah. I've got stuff on my shelf that I pulled out of like, a trip to Scotland or I went to Spain and I found the same stuff. It's just dirtier because I haven't cleaned it, but it's the same material that they're selling in this jewelry store, and I'm just there like, really?
When you've traveled, where exactly have you traveled to with just in the study of geology?
Just in the study of geology. So, well, I didn't used to travel before geology much because I was at school and just didn't really seem as interested. But that's just since starting geology, I've been quite a few places. A lot over the UK, so all over Scotland. We did a lot of field work, and Wales, and various places in England. And then I've also been to south of Spain, Tenerife, Romania, uh, Sicily, which is in Italy, and various other places in Europe, just because key sort of, I guess, areas to learn the best geology are in like very specific spots. So like a lot of different universities will go to the same places.
I'm guessing a lot of the specific spots are probably places that don't have a lot of foot traffic or not a lot of community buildup. It seems like a lot of what happens to do with environmental things, such as people creating more homes, people creating more businesses, areas where there's high population, you're going to see a lot less, at least useful resources for geology.
Yeah, but there's an interesting mix with that because there's almost a new movement towards it's basically it's called anthropogenic geology. So geology that's affected by humans. So geology obviously is billions of years old, but now in the very recent years, humans are directly affecting where certain geological areas like can be because of, as you say, we're building homes, building roads, building trains. So it's like actually manually putting in rock where it wouldn't have naturally gone, and a lot of those places are actually quite interesting to go to as well. So if you're, I don't know, if you're exploring for metal deposits out in, let's say, Romania, which is quite a barren area in the countryside, if they've built a road going through the mountains, because they've dug up quite a lot of the sides of the roads to build it, you actually get a better view of the geology than if you'd just gone there like naturally. Because vegetation will cover up a lot of the geology that you wouldn't if it was all natural, you would actually probably not see a lot. While sometimes actually human interaction has benefited what we've been able to see just because someone's took a digger and
Are you
dug it up.
saying that people are giving the earth geological implants?
I don't know if implants is the right word. That's a dangerous word. But we're definitely changing it.
Or giving Kim Kardashian ass implants to our earth, but in a
We
more
are.
of a rocks. That's crazy though that you guys get more research from that too. I mean, I can understand making it aesthetically. Like I know so many people that, well, not me personally, but I've seen so many articles of people that design their homes in so many ways where they start crafting out and first of all excavating a lot of their property just to be able to get rock formations and create more of a natural flow to it as well. But it just seems like we're all fascinated with just rock in general, just that idea, that thought, but we give it such a basic word as well. We call it just rock because that's what it is. You know what I mean?
Four-letter word, just
Yeah.
rock.
But it's something a hell of a lot more than that, that we literally use that as anything that is in the shape or what might be the texture of a rock, when it's giving it a flag under so many other things, whether it's quartz, whether it's, diamond, gold, all these types of things that we put in 4-letter fucking words, man.
Yeah, that's all the really interesting stuff and the really rare stuff as well. It's just, yeah, you don't even think about it, and then if you just start looking around, you'll notice it. Things like you're in a kitchen, and it's like the kitchen countertop. It's made out of rock most of the time. So a lot of them made out of a mixture of things now. But the really nice marble countertop, or walking down the high street and you see what a lot of the buildings are made out of, like banks. The front of banks usually have quite shiny sort of blocks that make them up to make them look aesthetically sort of better. But it's just a chunk of rock that they picked up and gone, oh, that's shiny, that'll make us look better. And
Do you find, like, with geology, like, or just in general, do you find that it seems like a lot of people are just not really interested into it, even though everybody collects a rock? It feels like nobody ever wants to understand exactly what it is or where it came from.
I find it's a weird mix. So some people want to know if they found it. So if they found it and go, oh, that's really interesting, and then they want to know more about it, they'll ask questions. But if
Or
you're
if it came
showing
from space. If it came from space, everybody wants to know what the fuck it is.
exactly, if it comes shooting down from space and it's like really cool, everyone will want to know what it's made of. But if you've got this, like, I don't know, shiny thing that you pull out of the Lake District in England, no one cares. Like, no one cares at all what you're holding. So it's a weird mix between people being interested and telling you to shut up. So
What would you find that one of the things that you've done in your research, like one of the things that's kind of stuck in your head, or maybe a trip you've taken, or just something you've learned that has been interesting to you?
oh, good question. Trying to think now.
Because you were talking about the English Lake District, so that seems like a project you might have had.
Well, that's my current work. So actually, yeah, okay. So the English Lake District is quite a touristic area. A lot of people go there just for the hiking, the camping, the scenic views, the lakes. Like, it's absolutely fantastic place to go.
I saw
But
2 swans having sex on that lake.
exactly. What kind of photo opportunity is that? That's great.
Yeah, you got to
But
think in the mindset of the people and what's going to get them those Instagram followers.
what's going to get more likes? 2 swans having sex or a nice scenic hillside? You know what I mean? Like,
Or a nice quartz rock, yeah.
or a nice quartz rock. But the Lake District, I didn't realize, has had so much mining in it historically. They don't mine in there anymore, but they mined it for things like, well, I'm going to say basic things like, building material, copper, lead, like barite, just really sort of construction-based material. And then they stopped in the 90s. But going there now, we're finding the really rare shit that people want for their renewable technology, for their lithium batteries, for their electric cars. Like, we're finding cobalt, tellurium, silurium. Like, the non-sexy part of geology is probably the most important part in terms of actually being useful to our society in that sense.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, but cobalt is actually a very useful material when it comes to like making electronics and also things like um I don't want to say ceramics. I feel like that's
You are
wrong.
correct.
Okay.
Ceramics, yeah.
All right, cool. So my education in school a little bit
Someone paid attention. Yeah, so cobalt is it's important for ceramics, important for electronics, electric cars, lithium batteries, mobile phones. It's an essential in our modern sort of day and
No
age.
Twitter without cobalt, people.
Exactly. You ain't gonna be able
Remember
to
that.
Instagram your fucking breakfast if you don't have any cobalt for your
Can't
phone.
tweet what you're doing if you're taking a shit. Nobody's gonna know without cobalt.
Exactly. So, but no one talks about it because everyone's focused on things like, I don't know, silver and gold. But cobalt's rarer than both of those.
Now, with your current research, though, like what have you kind of done so far during it?
Basically, my research is focusing on identifying cobalt and sort of other rare metals in the Lake District understand where and how they form, so we can then apply that knowledge elsewhere where they're already kind of looking for cobalt deposits. Because we can't really mine the Lake District at the moment for the cobalt because there's not enough of it, and the UK government probably won't do that because of all the tourism in the area. But trying to understand how it forms here will then be able to allow us to understand how it would form elsewhere in an environment where you maybe wouldn't be able to see it as well or access it as easily.
What are the subtle tells of being able to figure out where, like, how it forms or how it's created? I can't think it has to be anything like watching a plant grow. And
No, nothing is. I wish it was that simple. It's usually associated with other metals, so copper, lead, and zinc. And so where they were historically mining for that is where we're now finding that actually there was also cobalt in there. And then by understanding what sort of deposited the metal, so a lot of okay, I don't know how deep to go into this. So metals are deposited by basically fluids that come from magma. So this is on like a long time scale. So it's not just like shooting a water gun and it's holding some metal in it and that just like, sprays cobalt over the wall.
yeah, this is probably like a good 1,000-year process. I get you.
A few million, yeah.
Oh, shit, a lot more. That's like
Yeah,
putting a hot pocket in the microwave. It says put it in for 10 minutes. You put it in for like 15.
exactly. It's a bit too long. So if we can understand the sort of origin, so if it all came from magma, if it all came from like sort of another aspect of the geology in the area, and then finding trends between that and other places that we see the same thing. So if we're finding similarities between across the whole Lake District, because it's quite a geologically diverse area, and if we're finding that in the north of Lake District and the south of Lake District, cobalt is forming in very similar environments locally, then that would be a good indication that in that sort of environment is where you're going to find it. And then if you collect enough data to confirm that and sort of find it elsewhere, you can then probably go abroad, Canada, Australia, North Spain, Africa, and try and find similar places with similar geology, and you're most likely actually going to find the same thing.
So more common with like finding, like if you find a copper vein or something where you'd be able to mine and get a small amount of copper out, it probably locally in that area, there's probably another copper deposit. Or maybe if you're looking for cobalt or something, if you start noticing that there's a little bit here, if you keep searching around, you might find that the area might be heavily laced with cobalt.
Yeah, it's all about trying to find trying to track it, trying to follow the trends, trying to understand how it got there so that you can find it. So if you know how it got there, you're going to be able to find it, and that's the key aim of that, what we're doing.
You'll be able to figure out where you can find other spots as well if you start noticing like, oh shit, it's growing in a very close, I guess, damp spot. Like it's being able to grow near this, and then you'll be able to pinpoint it and be able to find out where you can get more of it.
Yeah, it's simple shit. It's not simple, but it's simple shit. Is when I was just in the Lake District, and we were digging through some spoil heaps from a mine. So when the mine it was throwing all the crap out that they didn't want, they just piled it in big heaps on the next to the shaft. And so we were digging through that because that's the best place to find samples because it's from deep underground, and you don't have to dig. So we were looking through there and we noticed a simple little trend of a lot of the heavier rocks that were stained red contained the sulphides. So the things like the copper, things like the cobalt and the lead. And it was a simple thing like, oh, so if we just look for red heavy rocks in this big pile, and weirdly enough, we actually found quite a few samples. So we were just there like, that's interesting.
Literally, when you said colors, I literally just thought for a second, I pictured my art teacher walking down into like an old mine shaft and being like, look for the reds, the blues, and the orange.
Yeah,
look for those fucking colors and you will find all the minerals we're looking for.
Just send the kids down the mine shaft, look for the red, and then bring it out.
Every kid grab a pickaxe and a lamp helmet. That's all you need. See, what's what's interesting though about like just mining in general, do you ever start to question like how did these people figure out with the tools and kind of where the technology was at the time, these essential mineral deposits?
Yeah, it's really in some cases I understand how they did it, and in other cases I have no fucking clue. Like in in a fair few of them, they're located near rivers, and what the rivers will do is where it erodes the rock. And if the river's eroding the rock and it's got metal in it, then the metal's going to get transported downstream. And someone's walking through the stream and they go, "Oh, what's that shiny thing?" You know, when you're panning for gold, it's that. Like they pick it up and go, "Oh, that's cool. Where'd that come from? Let's try upstream." And then they keep going upstream.
On the basis of a shiny object caught our eye.
Yep, that is how most interesting things have probably been found rock-wise. Is someone looked at it and went, "That's shiny. What's that?" And then yeah,
Would you say that geology is just becoming a lot harder and even our technology now is just being a little bit more difficult to be able to find like more, I guess, rare rock only because it seems like there's not a whole lot of it left or everywhere we're looking is at least completely tapped out?
yeah, there's a real problem at the moment in the industry in the sense that what would be considered the easy deposits, not necessarily easy to understand, but just near the surface, are have been either found, mined, or are we can't access because due to I don't know either political reasons or just pure topographic reasons. Like it's at the top of a fucking mountain, and you just ain't gonna get it drills up there to dig it out. But so now we're in a weird situation where we have a society based on a lot of these metals and a lot of these resources, and there are more. Like from based on our understanding, there is the Earth has shitloads. Like it's an uncomprehendable amount of shitload that we have. It's just can we access it for based on our economy that we have set up? So like, you know, is it cheaper to dig deeper and drill further, or is it cheaper to use alternatives? And that's kind of where we're getting to now, because it's like, you know, the whole question of whether oil is being overtaken by renewables or all that stuff.
Everywhere we got to go to get more of this rock or more of these minerals to be able to provide, let's say, coal power, fossil fuels, whatever the hell you want to say. A lot of people don't
Yeah,
understand like the reason why gas is starting to cost so much money is because we're running out of it. It's a very limited resource. Everybody thinks it's just a river. It's going to keep on being there forever. Well, guess what? Rivers dry out. You know,
exactly.
we burn through our resources pretty fast as people.
We're
And
burning through it, and it's like
eh,
there's only so many sources.
and the funny thing is they're never going to let you go after new sources either because all the new sources are either a conservation, they're a research department, they're all these types of things like what happened with the observatory on that native land in Hawaii where there was going to be they were going to build this observatory to look at the stars because it'd be easier to pierce through our ozone layer just because of all the pollution that's going on. You need to build up high to be able to observe the sky anymore. And a bunch of people were getting angry about it because it was built on a national reserve. I understand that, but if anything, that should wake people up to the fact also that we're doing a severe amount of damage as well. And areas like research departments, geology departments, fossil excavation, whether you're in archaeology or paleontology, is going to be a lot more difficult for them to get funding because it just seems like we're living in a world where it's not really needed anymore, and it's 100% not true.
Exactly. Yeah. It's funding is harder to come by. Competition is ridiculous. Companies are, you know, not only not only is it a factor of necessity in terms of people need these materials, companies are competing to find and extract them. So it's not it's a weird mix between damage to the environment, business, and actually a societal need. So it's almost coming to a point where which one are we going to start prioritizing? Is it the companies that don't want to explore for this stuff unless it makes them a profit, or is it the fact that we actually need it for
It
society to currently function?
you know that the main thing that's going to be prioritized is the money aspect of it. And then I think
Oh, always.
it comes probably down to the preservation of the land, and then third, it comes down to research. They're going to always worry about research last because everyone wants to pick on the nerd in the glasses, but no one ever wants to hear or give him a minute to hear what he has to say until when they really need him the most. Am I right?
Yep, that's true.
Now, with just kind of taking your analysis, going on your trips and your travel that you've been on and kind of seeing it in person and being able to figure out like where certain patterns and certain kind of correlations to how certain things might form or shape. When you go back to the lab and you're looking under a microscope, what's one thing that you've kind of found in your research that really sparked an interest into your head?
That's a good one.
I got a lot
I
of good questions.
Yeah, that is. God, trying to think. I like the fact that when I'm in the lab, so go in there, got my samples from the field, and crushing them up, putting them into little sections, and looking down at a microscope. What I like is you can see and understand just on the microscope level what you were seeing and understanding on an almost regional scale by it being in the field. So if I'm in the field in the Lake District looking at as we say in cobalt mineralization or something, and I'm seeing distinct structures in certain orientations going north, south, southwest, or whatever, and certain metals in those structures, I can then take that understanding and look at a rock sample that's probably like a centimeter by 2 centimeters down a microscope, and you can see the same thing. You can see the same structures on a complete micro level. And to me, that's just so weird because it's like everyone always thinks on the larger scale, and I always think on the larger scale because that's a scale I can see. But actually, it's more everything's happening on the micro scale, and it's just being extended into our scale when there's enough of it.
See,
But actually, it's the
what's
same
crazy
phenomenon.
is you start saying microscope. I know that in my head, I'm going to get a completely different information intake than you're going to get when you look into a microscope. You're going to be
I
looking.
love that though. I love the fact that people look into microscopes and see the different stuff, even when they're both. Even if we were both trained geologists, you would still see something completely different to me.
So are you saying that it's a lot like looking at a cloud? Nobody ever sees the same thing. There's just subtle key things that attract our eyes to different things.
Yes, definitely. You're trained to see what you would look at down a microscope. So you would look at down it and you would may see about 20 different colors and 30 different shapes, but you have to start breaking that down to try and understand what you're actually seeing from a scientific point of view. And then we would start to agree on maybe this mineral was that and that mineral was this. But we would still probably always differ in some way. If I were to write a description on the sample and you were to write a description on the sample, an A4 page, there would probably be similarities enough to be like, yeah, cool, we both looking at the same rock.
I'm writing down that I saw Darth Vader's face into this rock.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm there going, well, I saw C3PO, so what happened?
We found a Star Wars rock. That's what happened.
Yeah, quick, someone put this on eBay.
See, when it comes to geology, though, that does paint a good picture, though, because I think is why that a lot of people, when it comes to just researching or looking under a microscope, that's important information that you're saying. Like people that see different things are able to pull different things out because you might. Someone's eyes, like it's like being attracted to something like keys or something, or when two people go on like a nature walk or just look at nature and they ask what they see the most, you can find that their eyes wander to two completely different things. You might look at the water, look how pretty the sky is. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that one person that's like, yeah, 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 is probably looking at flowers or looking at something else that caught their attention, which is probably
Yeah,
what you see when you're on an expedition or something, you're doing research with a bunch of people. You start noticing that everyone's intaking different information.
yeah, because they literally test us on that. Like every time you go in the field as an undergraduate, you get told, right, sit probably 100 meters away from some sort of outcrop and draw what you see. And that's a simple instruction. It's just draw what you see. But as we've just been saying, everyone sees something different. So everyone's going to draw an outcrop and everyone's going to draw the same shape. But once you start looking at it in terms of the sort of internal structures and sort of maybe is that shaped like this? Is this color that? Yeah, everyone will start differentiating. And that's not necessarily meaning anyone's wrong, but it's then hard to explain to someone what the right answer is, if you know what I mean.
Now, would you say it's difficult just through your the travels that you've done so far, or just being able to kind of go out into the world and be able to look around? Do you find that with like if you're going to a new place or something, it's hard to kind of look past what all the other tourists see and be able to analyze and first of all conduct your research? I feel like for me, if I was going to be a geologist and you take me to somewhere like Mount Everest, or you take me somewhere maybe with like a large mineral deposit that hasn't been highly foot trafficked, I would be stunned more on the beauty of everything around me rather than the individual items or resources that would be something I'd be trying to research.
Yeah, you do switch it off. Like there are a lot of times when I go abroad or traveling and I don't even think anything geological. I look at the mountainside or the hillside or whatever, and I just see that. Like I'm not looking as a geologist. If I then
There's
decided
two
to,
swans on
yeah,
that river
there's two
having
swans
sex.
down there, so it doesn't matter what they're doing it on. There's two swans.
You
Um,
want me to analyze quartz? There's two swans over there. I'm telling you.
yeah. But at the same time, sometimes if you're there long enough, you'll start seeing things. If you're like looking over at a like picturesque view and you're sitting there for a good half an hour, you will start to look at the geology just because that's the way your brain's trained at some point. But no, first things I usually look at are just, oh my God, this place is beautiful or whatever. Like, it's not always an instant kicker.
Do you ever find that you get a little bit afraid sometimes, like if you think you see something and you might realize like, oh, you might like freak out or something like, oh my God, it's this over there. And then you finally go over to it and you find out it's not what that is. Even if
Every time. Yeah.
I could, yeah,
Yeah.
because I knew at one point, like a lot of people, especially in the years of panning for gold back in the day, there was a thing like gold fever where all these people were getting obsessed with going after gold and finding it, and they call it fool's gold. Saying that
Right,
there's
yeah.
gold there. They literally, they got this like psychological thing inside of their head where to the point where they thought that there was gold there when really there was none.
Yeah. No, it's so easy, especially when areas are heavily vegetated, to sort of see what you want to see, not what you're actually seeing. And it takes quite a lot of practice to get out of that. Because there are many a time when I've gone in the field and I'm like, instead of looking at what I'm supposed to be looking at and then figuring out what it is, so observation and then interpret it, you quickly jump to interpretations because that's the easier way of thinking. And then you only see what proves that. You don't see everything else. So you start automatically selectively seeing things to prove your idea rather than actually trying to keep your head unbiased, and just see what's actually there. It's a really common thing when you go in the field, especially for the first few times, to just you think you understand something. Maybe it triggered something that you learned in a lecture or like, something you read about the area before you go there. You just see something that proves something in your head. So you only see that. You don't see the other thing that completely disproves it because you just selectively ignore it. And yeah, that happens a lot.
Now, I do have to ask this one. So this is going to be a little bit different than the questions I've asked before. But this one, though, it would not even in your travels and your research as a geologist, but just maybe throughout your whole entire life. What is one thing everyone's kind of had a spiritual moment, I would say, just about the earth, or more like a wow, this is beautiful. Whether it's a place you've explored or whether it's just a moment that was in the air, what would that be for you? Because I remember I went to the Grand Canyon, and that was probably one of the most memorable trips I've ever been on. Only because for 3.5 hours you're looking at fucking rocks that are all orange, like for the longest time, and it's not fun to go up there. But once you go up there, the view is completely worth the long bus ride up because it is some of the most beautiful things, the formations, all these types of things, where literally people say it was like God created it or something. Whether you want to be religious or not, if you want to talk about the lakes and the erosion and all this type of stuff, it is so fascinating just to be able to see how all these things have formated and, first of all, probably shifted and created this beautiful piece of what I would call it art.
Yeah. No, that's man, I'd love to go to Grand Canyon. Like everyone that's ever said they've gone to Grand Canyon is enjoyed the hell out of it. Like, that is on the bucket list. But God, mine. I've had a few, so this is not a problem in the sense of do I have one? It's trying to think of which one, which one, because I
Say them all if you want. I'm curious to hear, because I feel like you definitely have more of one in a lifetime, but there's always just one that super sticks out. But I mean, I've had a couple for sure.
would say the first one that sticks out in my mind is Romania. So there's a mountains called the Apuseni Mountains, which is like a smaller mountain area of this main mountain trend through the middle of the country. So when you go there, it's in the middle of fucking nowhere. It's just like Romania itself is already quite a interesting country in the sense that there's really big cities that are quite modern, and then you go a few kilometers outside of it and you go to just peasant life in the 1800s. Like it's quite a weird mix. And I was just in the middle of fucking nowhere in the mountains with this exploration company, and I would say that some of the views from there, where there was just absolutely nothing, like no cars, no road traffic, no light pollution, no noise pollution, no nothing, just absolutely nobody, forests, mountains, and like that was it. I think that's fantastic. Like anyone that has ever said or talked to me about traveling, I've always said go to Romania. Like it's the most underappreciated place.
It's because it's so much of it's still left preserved. I mean, this is why people from like the states, certain areas where they live in high dense populations, are going to areas like Alaska, going to different places that are so isolated where they can still see some of the natural beauty that you don't get to notice here anymore. I mean, I don't walk out into my off my front porch anymore, look up, and I don't see any stars. I see fucking satellites and I see airplanes. I'm
Yeah.
like, where's the other stars I used to look up at when I was 7 years old and see all these beautiful, like just white lights up in the sky? Now I look up and it's just black.
I completely agree. It's like I've got the same here. Like I look out my window right now and I'm under Heathrow, like in the sense of the Heathrow airport is all the airplanes going over, there's no stars. It's, typical sort of city. But the best places to be sometimes are out in the sticks where you can see all the stars. You can like you're not hearing cars. It's just such a different thing. I don't think our ears are even tuned anymore to actual silence. Like there's always something in the background, whether it's the thrum of a nearby road to people to whatever it is. So I think if you actually put into like proper silence in nature, it would be actually weird because it'd just be different, completely different.
Be something we couldn't comprehend for sure.
Yeah.
What's one thing that you have that you want to do in your travels as a geologist, or just one thing that you have a kind of a hope to find, whether it's a rock? I know if I found a rock that was imprinted with like a symbol of two swans having sex, that'd be pretty.
If you found that in a lake, that'd be like the best.
I would call that swanbonium.
Swanbonium. Oh man. I don't know. There's always these thoughts of like, what would you do? People have sometimes got their little geological road trip planned out where they hit all the touristy spots across the world for geological features. I don't know. I've never been as inclined for that. I mean, I'd love to find a new mineral, like even if it's a small one, just a new mineral. That'd be really cool because there's so many of them now, and it's so hard to find new ones.
Now, new mineral, are we talking about, does it have to do anything, or do you just want something that you can name? Because I feel like
something I can name.
That all right. Thank you. Thank you.
Shit.
Finally, a guy who has some sense. I feel like everybody gives me a humble answer when I'm like, you want to create something so you can name it, right? well, I just want to create something that's going to benefit. No, stop.
Fuck that shit.
Give it a badass name.
Yeah, exactly. I'm doing a PhD to help people. I don't need any more than that. I want a mineral I can name. I want to name that shit.
What would you call your mineral?
Oh no, you can't ask me that. I don't know yet.
You guess, is it one of those moments where you just see it and you know, like naming your child? Like, I always thought that was weird. Some people would wait to name their child till they're like 3 years old. I'm like, what do you call them?
You just gotta wing it sometimes. I think winging it.
It's weird. All right, that brings a really weird question. We're going off geology for a second.
Let's go for it.
When you name your kid, how does that name fit that person's face when they grow up?
See, I don't think I'd go off that, because you're just never gonna know what they're gonna look like.
That's what I'm saying, though. But like everybody I see now, and I talk to, like, he looks like a Steve. I don't know why. I couldn't think of a better name. He's a Steve for sure. His face is a Steve. How the fuck do you know? Does the face, after multiple years and combination of growth, just like adapt to the name?
Clearly, well, you just have some sort of weird association between names and faces. Like, but here's the thing, though. Here's the other bit. It's like when you're naming your kid, you're holding your kid in your arms and you're trying to think of a name for it. I don't want to shit on anyone's name here, but who holds a baby and goes, "I'm calling this Steve," or "I'm calling it Derek"? Like, you know.
Yeah, there's going to be people out there named Steve and Derek. They're like,
sorry to all Steve and Dereks, but you know what I mean? Like,
but it fits, though. I'm like, I always, this is a weird theory. I want to start getting people to believe, like flat Earth or something. I want them to run with this idea. Like, now everybody start calling your kids very old badass names like Beowulf or Leonardo da Vinci, and watch them turn into beautiful works of art.
start naming your kids edgy shit from at least pre-1900. There you go. Just start doing that.
I'm naming my kids the 4 Ninja Turtles.
Which one are you going to start with, though? That's the key question. Because
he's got to be the tone setter for the group.
Yeah, because if you ain't going to get all 4, you're going to have to make sure you get the right ones in. So
I always thought about naming them after like Greek gods or something badass, to where the teacher's like, "Is Zeus here?" And you're like, "Oh, I'm not messing with that kid, because that kid's going to kill everybody if it goes bad here."
Is Agamemnon in the class? Yes, he is. He's at the back.
Is Minotaur here? Well, I mean, it's a crazy concept too. I really want to bring back the point, though, that geology is an amazing art too. I don't see a lot of people really chasing down this pathway, only because of the aspect of, it seems like our interests changed. You know, as a society, we use technology in different ways now. When it seems like, even though as a kid, those are your most basic primal characteristics, and first of all, personality traits that you have is collecting rocks, collecting shells, going out and exploring, being this kind of energetic ball of fun. And it seems like it's changing in a society where it's developing more of a comfortability with technology, where kids are just not wanting to go out and do anything anymore. I'm at fault of doing it times myself, but it seems like we're missing out on a key feature of making a memory or making a discovery that's going to end up being lost with the way we're taking technology.
Well, that's the weird irony of it all, isn't it? We're all going down the route of technology, which is such an advantage, because we can capture moments on a nice camera now, and it does still hold memory. But you got to go back to that basic fact of, how are we going to be able to keep building this technology if we don't have the shit to build it with? You know what I mean? And it's like, everyone likes to forget that bit. Damn Cobalt again. Like, you need it if you want to post on Instagram, if you want to keep having your avocado on toast on Instagram. You're going to have to get some Cobalt.
That's what makes it even harder for me to be a geologist, because I feel like every time I look at a rock, I would just be like, if I discover more cobalt, then that means more cell phone production. And I don't think people are ready for it.
So you don't want to be an enabler. Is that why you're staying away from it?
I try and stay away from technology a little bit. If it's 2:00 in the morning and I'm on Dragon City, there's a problem.
It's been a bad day, if that's the
It's
case.
it's been a rough week for my bank account because I'm probably spending $4.99 on a bunch of gems I don't need.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
There's no other
God.
response for that. Just sigh and just contemplate and I guess coil up in the corner, I guess you would say.
Yeah, coil up in the corner and cry.
Well, Adam, I really appreciate you coming out and doing the podcast, man. It's been awesome talking to you.
Yeah, that's no worries. It's been awesome to be on here.
Now, I do suggest, though, if you ever come across two swans having sex on a river,
I will take a photo and I will tag you.
Thank you.
That will happen.
It's bound to happen in your travels. I guarantee you there's someone out there right now that's like, hey, I had that happen to me one time. I was at a family picnic.
Well, if anyone's out there and they've heard or seen this, we want to know about it.
Well, Adam, I want to give you here a minute at the end also to promote your links in your website too, so people can follow you on your research journey.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you very much. So basically, yeah, my website is called adameskdale.com. It's basically just a website that's sort of following the research I do on Cobalt in the Lake District, as well as also highlighting some of the places I travel to while I'm doing it. So I've already been to Madrid, been to Paris, and I've got about 8 or 9 more trips planned this year. So if that's the sort of thing that you'd be interested in reading up, just take a look at the website and see how you feel.
Now you get to sign us off, Adam. How are you going to do it?
I get to sign us off. Oh God, the pressure. How have other people signed us up?
I don't know. I'm giving you the option here. I've just thought we just shoot from the hip.
Okay, we're signing off. I'm trying to think of a geology pun to sign us off with, but nothing's coming to mind.
Geology. What rock rhymes with signing off? They have such interesting names. Like I couldn't look at a rock and be like, "That's Cobalt. That's Cobalt for sure." I couldn't think of a better name for that than Cobalt.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There you go. If I name a mineral, it will be a pun. It will be a fucking pun. So every time I say it, it'll be like somewhat entertaining, at least to me.
Swanbodium.
Swanbodium. There you go. And on that note, Swanbodium.